Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus, journeying through the decade to bring you a review of SHFiguarts Kamen Rider Decade. This was the first Figuarts release to come out while its show was still on the air, and I believe it was almost a proof of concept of Figuarts being a toy vehicle for a currently airing show. Decade's amazing magenta does not really show up all that well on the camera unless in post-production something changes. I think that that's in part just because it's so vivid, and under my lighting it kind of pops a little bit more than is comfortable. But Decade is again a very great representation of the Decade suit, for better or for worse, depending on your opinion of it. There is one big issue some people have brought up, though. Although he has very nice compound eyes, and in fact individual pieces of plastic for the cards that slat into his face. Some of his jawline here is a little bit miscolored as compared to how the show looks. And for some folks, that's been a bit of a deal-breaker. It's not been a real deal-breaker for me, but it definitely is a small criticism to raise, because that's how it is with Figuarts. They're so good that the minor problems become moderate. And as far as missing detail goes, there was one other part that was really disappointing for me. His Deca Driver does not have the Heisei Rider symbols around its ring. Again, I realize these are tiny, paltry dots of paint, but when it comes to Figuarts, I really do care about those tiny, paltry dots of paint. Especially when such tiny, paltry dots appear on another belt. However, I can't fault it for that alone, and hey, you know, it pulls off some painted white that is pretty solid white, and I'm quite sure it's not white plastic, though I may be proven wrong. So overall, Decade is a decent Figuart. He's got a few little detail problems, but not enough to be crippling, and definitely not enough to say he's not recommended, simply for that. His posability is quite excellent, as per usual. His hips are akin to Agito, or Black RX's, so he doesn't have the hinge down, and he does not have a ball-jointed ankle. It's pure swivel, but that's alright, it still gets a lot done. Nothing is impeded by his armor design, which is the main thing I wanted to see. And his shoulders, they raise up quite nicely. Everything gets out of the way when it needs to, even though you have to push it down sometimes. And overall, he still accomplishes the excellent motion one expects from an SHFiguarts release. Decade is a really bright, poppy image on the shelf, and having maintained his full-on Figuarts posability and potential helps keep him in a higher tier area in the Figuarts releases thus far. And something else that really helps keep him from being a weaker release would be his accessory count, because get a load of all this stuff! There's a whole lot of it. Aside from the sword and gun modes of the Ride Booker, he comes with 3 extra pairs of hands. Vaguely open, vaguely splayed hands. Holding things hands. And holding very certain things hands. Specifically, it's to hold the vast amount of cards he comes with. He comes with 2 copies of this set of cards, 11 in total, 1 for each Heisei Rider, plus 1 that represents the back of each card. I do have one big problem with these. It's actually something that I feel was really weak in this release, which is that these cards, they come printed in one long row, and a second copy of that row is printed beneath them on a piece of cardboard. You have to cut these out yourself. There are no perforations. The second set of cards, I believe, is there so that when you screw up your very first one, you haven't gaffed up a card for good. I'm sure some out there have had absolutely no problem cutting these out to a degree that leaves them satisfied. But I'm a little bit picky, and I really want the edges to all have a slight rounded corner to them. So it took me a while to get this to a degree where I was somewhat satisfied with it. However, the cards are otherwise very well printed and great accessories, seeing how they are Decade's whole thing. He also has a 3rd copy of the Ride Booker in the form that it's in when it's mounted on his belt. What's interesting about this is, aside from being removable, it also opens. The downside is it opens to no actual practical function. There's no way to store any cards in there, and opening it is really just for show. And I think it's a bit of a shame, because I don't believe it would have been hard to fit, you know, a divot in there. Honore. Especially given the thickness of the Ride Booker in comparison to one of the tiny cardboard cards. Focus is for losers. However, all that aside, there is a great gimmick in the form of his card-holding hands, which are very good at what they're supposed to do. This allows for a huge myriad of additional poses on Decade. I mean, for some folks, the whole card-holding gimmick is very meh, and very, why did they even bother? Oh my god, Gamba Ride. It's like Magic the Gathering, but more colorful and manly. I mean, seriously, Gamba Ride? I wish that was around when I was a little kid. I mean, I'd have played Gamba Ride a long time before I'd have saved up all my pennies to get my Leviathan or my Flying Juggernaut, but no, there I was trying to work out how to play an Artifacts deck correctly and drinking lots of Yoo-hoo. Anyway, when he's holding a card, it's very solidly in place. The card-holding hands have an extremely well-cut slot sculpted in between the thumb and forefinger. And by forefinger, I mean index finger. So when he holds a card, it does not fall out. It's extremely solid. The cardboard is not thick, but definitely not too thin as to flutter in the air. And overall, it's very effective. The only downside is there's nothing to do with the card afterwards. I admit, I'm not expecting a full-on working Deca Driver mechanism, but there is no method by which to pop this thing open and stick a card inside. Although they did put a red, clear jewel on the middle, so it's still a decent amount of physical detail. And in conjunction with his Ride Booker weapon formats, Decade is pretty well armed. I vaguely question including the Ride Booker in its weapon forms as 3 entirely separate accessories. The main reason for this, I believe, is a weird Figuarts paradigm, which is that when things that are small turn into weapons, they are often given an entirely new sculpt that's bigger. See Ixa Rising, upcoming in May. So, it turns out alright, it's not bad, but at the same time, it feels like maybe that accessory count, even though he has very plentiful accessories, maybe that accessory count could have been used somewhere to a more details-oriented degree. I mean, maybe there could have been some motion or moving parts worked into the Ride Booker, who knows? Or maybe there would have been a way to add more detail to the stationary Ride Booker and fit cards inside, although that would, I guess, kind of go against my whole idea of nullifying one of the Ride Bookers for accessory count, but I think that the gun one and the sword one could have been made into a bit of a fusion of accessories. Have the handle have a joint in it and have a detachable blade on the front. Just an idea, anyway. However, at the end of the day, Decade is a fairly successful Figuart. Definitely not the top of the line, but definitely nowhere near the bottom either. If you want a great representation of Decade, you've found one in this Figuart release. And you won't be disappointed. Besides, thanks to this toy, you can explore all the worlds that the TV show never got around to. Worlds such as Pink no Sekai, Superglue no Sekai, profitable cynicism-based web video series aimed at geeks no Sekai, Vinta Crockers no Sekai, crappy overpriced action figures that should have been sold in the 90s and still not done well no Sekai. Seriously, Mattel, $9 retail? Are you kidding me?
What up, Sekai fans? No Sekai?
Toys people have sent me as gifts, no Sekai. And of course, the world that we were robbed of, the world we deserve to see in Decade's television series or feature films. Hopper no Sekai. However, any maudlin about a past TV series aside, SHFiguarts Decade is a very solid release in the line and highly recommended if you're after a representation of Decade. If you don't like the design, the Figuart probably isn't going to change your mind. If you're after it for Heisei completionism, then I can tell you that he is at least a solid action figure. He comes with all the accessories he needs, and despite a few small issues with detailing here and there, he is by no means an ineffective Figuart. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus with a journey through the decade, but the path is still open. And it's right about now that I have a question for you all. Do you like sea cucumber?